Hey, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. Really fascinating chat today with the company Revolutionizing how we deliver and experience online content from Quilt. Lisa, how are you?
Hi. I'm doing great. Thanks.
Well, thanks for
Oh,
being here. Really interesting topic. As a techie, content delivery has been around as a topic for quite some time, but you're a little different. You have a pretty novel and innovative approach. Won't you start by telling us about yourself and who is Quilt?
yeah, absolutely. My name is Lisa Aussieker. Um, I've been in the streaming media business for about 20 years,
Mm,
coming up on that pretty soon. And it's just been it's been just a real fun journey. I've got to be in um, mostly in kind of the technical side of the streaming media industry, in various companies bringing various solutions. Um, and I just feel really lucky to be part of Quilt now, because I've been very exposed to the whole delivery network side of the equation for a long time, and really being part of it now in a kind of a new and exciting way, is really fun.
I
So
bet.
so Quilt, for anybody who isn't familiar, people are starting to recognize Quilt as a CDN, and it is. It's just a different type of CDN. So what Quilt really is we're first and foremost on a mission, to deliver internet experiences in the quality that they are imagined. Or to put that in a different way, what we're trying to do is we're trying to not let the network get in the way of any type of internet delivered experience, whether it's applications delivered over the internet, whether it's edge compute, or whether it's just kind of classic delivery of content, which we're all familiar with, but is happening in larger scales every day. So that's what Quilt is set out to do. And the way that we're set out to do that differently is that, we partner with service providers around the world. So it's
Mm.
not like a solution, it's not like a service provider solution. It's really a federated network of access edge all around the world. And so that's really exciting because our first use case that we're, I think, proving really, really, strongly with our service provider partners is kind of delivery from the edge of media, especially streaming and live streaming media. But really, it's a whole edge cloud, that is there to deliver, again, internet experiences.
Fantastic. Well, the service providers own a lot of those edges. So edge caching would be a natural topic for them. So how does it work? What are some of the benefits both to the, end customers, obviously, but the operators and content providers to your approach?
Well, I think one of the ways, I mean, having myself been around the industry a long time, the concept of federated CDN or a federated network of service providers isn't really a new one. I mean, I was with Ericsson, the media portion of the business, and actually brought, the UDN, or the Unified Media Delivery Network product that they had. I helped bring that to market. And that was over a decade ago. And that's just one example of this kind of desire of the industry to have this kind of united ability to access the edge, but it hasn't really ever come to fruition until Quilt. So, Quilt, we have over 180 service providers onboarded using
Wow.
Quilt to deliver, content through their network. So they have become themselves, a delivery network. And the reason it's so different is that it is a true partnership. It's a very collaborative, um, sort of network, federated network. So there are many benefits to the provider for coming on board. Offload in core and metro, network bandwidth offload. and visibility. Some service providers have historically accepted maybe a black box to help with the burden of delivering big streaming platforms or things of that nature, but then the visibility isn't there, and there isn't that kind of end-to-end aligned value of trying to just deliver the best possible quality to the end user. And Qwilt really opens that up and makes it easy for the service provider to do that. And it also makes it easy for the content provider or application provider to be able to come on board and access that global edge. So I would say that that's the fundamental difference. And what you see as a repercussion of that is, of course, this opening up of kind of a new refreshed value chain that's, again, aligned and kind of healthy, maybe sustainable, let's say, kind of feeds itself. So, being able to have that new revenue stream for the service provider, helps them, continue to grow their network. And the of course, end of the day results or kind of quality of experience that the end users get is fantastic, because you're delivering closer to the end user than ever before possible by opening up that access edge. So we almost say it's kind of an unfair advantage, really, because you are delivering within the neighborhood of subscribers rather than hundreds of miles away, which is the case for a lot of kind of traditional CDN setups. So there's advantages for every player of the ecosystem. And we've seen that especially key in live streaming. So I think 2004, we're on the very last days of 2004 right now. I think 2004 has marked the opening of exclusively live streaming events. I mean, we've seen a number of those this year that previously we saw just here and there, but it's become a thing, and we're seeing, the ability of a edge delivery, CDN like what we have, to be able to deliver that in a way that the service provider doesn't see a huge spike, but rather sees kind of more of a blip in their network. It doesn't overburden their network. And the delivery quality, we can show that the delivery quality of what we've been able to achieve, even exceeds traditional CDN. So good benefits all the way around, with just trying to open up this kind of ecosystem.
Yeah, it's a huge ecosystem and growing, and it's huge opportunity, not just for traditional residential services like you think, home streaming, of course, but work from home people like myself who are streaming basically now as we speak. Enterprises who increasingly are consuming or creating streaming content. Also, 5G. You mentioned Ericsson. Already looking at what's next beyond 5G, 5.5G, 6G to meet streaming and video demands. So how do you help service providers without costing them a lot when it comes to a network they've already invested billions in? I'm really not too keen to spend another few billion on
So
top of it.
yeah, so you mentioned 5G. So this wasn't this year; it was actually the last year. We deployed with Airtel, one of the largest
Mm.
5G networks in the world. And their intention was, as they're rolling out 5G, they want to have this edge network. They see the advantages of coupling that together. It was a natural evolution for them to say, not only are we rolling out 5G, but we're going to do it in a way that we are having this very distributed edge network throughout India, to deliver the very best quality that we can. So, I mean, that's a one example of a service provider who is saying, this is how I'm going to add this to my normal equation of progressing my network. And another example of that would be here in the U.S. that was an announcement that was recently made this year, Comcast has joined the Quilt network, and kind of the same thing for them. They're looking at, what does our edge look like, you know, for the future? And if you read their press release, it was something kind of extraordinary for us. A lot of times we put out a press release with bringing a service provider on board, but in this case, Comcast put out their own, talking about their vision for the edge, and how Quilt's a part of that. But they have this, very, visionary idea in mind for how they will continue to advance their network to meet the future demands that they see coming.
Fantastic. Um, so we talk about on the business side, how do you get started? Whether if you're a big carrier, these things can take years, quarters. If you're a small MSO, let's say, it can be months. What does it take to turn on Quilt and start empowering better content delivery from day one?
I've seen so this is part of what I have described as kind of this fun ride, being part of Quilt. So not only have we been able to grow this network of service providers to over 180, almost 200 service providers worldwide in just the last few years, but also the amount of content providers that we serve as well. And we don't have that many that we can name by name and talk about case by case, but I mean, these are giant content providers and service providers. And I will tell you that just in kind of some of our most recent cases, the service providers that we have most recently brought on board, it has gone so much quicker than I thought it would go, from the start of the conversation to their, rolling this out. So, I mean, a lot of our service providers take it kind of by zone. They, will start with, let's trial this zone. Let's see how the performance is. They like what they see in the performance. And then, we roll that out. And like I said, sometimes that can be quite rapid. It just depends on if it's in line with, with kind of what their team has on board, because it is a very collaborative process. It is something that we do network by network, to the advantage of each network, and making it part of a highly functioning system. For the content providers, that can be extremely rapid. So
Mm.
what we're trying to do is make it for a content provider to be just like any traditional CDN experience. They onboard with us, and then they have access to this access edge, rather than just kind of the more traditional CDN network. And so for them, it looks very much the same. And I would say that we have a very large content provider, one of the largest software companies in the world, that has onboarded very quickly, in a matter of like a month or two, onboarded,
Wow.
and then has scaled up quite quickly as well. And what's great to see there is the amount of obviously bandwidth savings that happens through the edge caching, and also looking to the future. So software company talks about how a major gaming release today, that or update that they send out today, will look small in comparison to the large and small language model updates that are already coming and will continue to be in heavy demand. So I mean, the amount of content, whether it is streaming and we look at how much more live is coming and how demanding that is, or if we look at just the demand of software updates to support the types of things that we're all leaning into, we just need an alternate way to tap into the edge and leverage it.
Amazing. Um, so as you know better than I, latency and jitter can really bedevil live events, gaming sessions, particularly interactive, where you have like we're having up and down link conversations. How do you, on the tech side, how do you tackle things like lag and jitter and latency in these really demanding environments? You must have some really special sauce behind the scenes.
Yeah. So again, the special sauce of the quilt equation is the location. It's kind of
Mm.
like in the real estate biz where it's location, location, location. It's the same for us. I mean, when you are, delivering from, we say neighborhood level, instead of a multi-state, major peering point, you're just so much closer.
Mm.
And the distribution diffuses those spikes that you see at the major peering points. So if you had a live sporting event, it's going out to 10 million, 20 million streamers, instead of those peering points being bombarded by the demand of content. We basically are sending like one seed content into the service provider network and then distributing it out across. I mean, a lot of our big service providers have hundreds of nodes themselves. Worldwide, we have over 1,000 nodes.
Mm.
We're getting closer to 1,500 every day. So it's a lot of a lot of distributed reach. And when you're dealing with that sort of proximity, the latency naturally decreases significantly. The quality naturally improves quite a bit. And of course, we have our own our own technology behind the scenes there as well. But actually making that move to the actual edge, we run into this a lot of times. That's how we describe the edge, as kind of the deep edge, closest to the access edge, that's the closest to like the the user and the device, versus like the very beginning, if you will, of the service provider network, which would be kind of like a main peering point data center.
Mm.
So a lot of times when we hear people talk about the edge right now, they are talking about kind of one extreme versus the other in terms of the penetration into the edge, or the embedded nature, that we try to talk about as a differentiating quality.
Fantastic. Well, I'm headed to CES in January, and you're going to have lots of edges there, new 5G enabled devices, drones and cars, and AR glasses and VR headsets. So, I mean, you're going to really have to ramp up your network over the next few years to think about the new devices and emerging technologies and use cases. Do you see yourself having, millions of edges?
Well, yeah, in terms of the amount of nodes that we have distributed everywhere, I don't know what that number would be exactly. But I do know that we've, obviously blown past 1,000 in a very short time, ramping up, and we all know that demand just doesn't stop.
Mm.
And so, the more nodes, the more distributed the network is across service providers that touch all end users that are trying to experience the content. The better the experience will be, the less disturbed the experience will be, which comes back to our original vision, which is really just to not get in the way of the progress of those experiences that are being imagined for us.
I bet. Well, I'm looking forward to next year in tech. I know the National Retail Federation, the big show, is one. I guess you potentially have lots of retailers who could leverage your tech. And of course, Mobile World Congress is coming up. I imagine that's a
Yes.
big get together. What are you looking forward to next year?
Oh gosh, I mean, we're looking forward to all of those events, and I mean, biggies for us continue to be NAB and IBC,
Mm.
talking everything media. But I shouldn't forget to say this. Quilt has been kind of a founding member from the start of the SVTA, which
Mm.
is huge. Reason that I think that the quilt technology has caught on is that we've embraced the SVTA's open caching standard. And so we can easily say that we are, the world's largest commercial deployment of open caching. So we really look forward to all the SVTA events, all the working groups that we're a part of. We continue to be part of course, open caching, but there's been an announcement that there is a new Edge working group, and we're part of that. So we're really looking forward to all of that work as well, and continuing to work towards this, kind of again refreshed or evolved value chain that allows us to experience more.
Fantastic. Well, I love open standards and open networking and onwards and upwards. Congratulations on all the success at Quilt.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks so much for having us on.
And thanks for being here. Thanks for watching, everyone, listening and sharing. Take care.
Thanks.